The 2023 MLB trade deadline is officially here tomorrow at, I think, around 3:30 Eastern Time on August 1st will be the trade deadline, and we'll be taking a look at all the trades done so far and who could possibly be dealt and what teams are selling or trying to buy at the deadline. Let's go ahead and start today's video. Alright, so the first official trade of the deadline area was when the Dodgers ended up trading for Kiki Hernandez and Enrique. And they ended up trading away right-handed pitcher Nick Robertson and right-handed pitcher Justin Hagenman. And overall, I'm going to be taking a look at what ESPN is grading these trades. They ended up giving a C to both teams. So, as Kiki Hernandez played shortstop, and Story is their shortstop. He has played in 2 of 3 rehab games, so I guess he could be playing shortstop for the team coming up. And of course, you also have Kiki Hernandez, who is traded back to Kiki, where he was a valuable utility player for 7 years. And overall, this is a really good trade. You can see right here. You can see the stuff right there. You can pause. Anyway, next up we do have the next trade, and that is the Dodgers ended up trading for Amed Rosario, and they ended up trading away Noah Syndergaard, so the Guardians get a quality pitcher instead of a quality shortstop. They ended up grading the Dodgers a B- and the Guardians a C-, and he is below replacement. They should be able to upgrade with one of their cake of organizationally developed players, and he was headed for free agency. Maybe it will be Gabriel Arias, maybe even Brian Rocio, and Andres Jimenez. You are not sure. It was going to be Ahmad, and it is a question of return, because Rosario's muddled right now value, it doesn't necessarily signify the Guardians are punting on the year. Anything could happen in the AL Central, and the Guardians' middling performance means they should straddle the fence between adding and subtracting. And then you do have Noah Syndergaard. This helps the Dodgers' payroll, and if Cleveland was hoping to move Rosario while snagging some end-of-rotation depth, it's hard to see how this does the trick. They see something in Thor. The Guardians must see something in Thor, and without knowing what that is, you just cannot get in board with this swap. So the next trade that happened was the Giolito trade to the Angels. The Angels ended up trading away Edgar Quero and Kai Busch for right-handed pitcher Lucas Giolito and right-handed pitcher Reynaldo Lopez. They ended up rating the Angels a B- for this, and Giolito and Lopez are on the move after coming up through the Washington National system. They were shipped to Chicago, both of them, along with Dane Dunning for Adam Eaton during the 2016 winter meetings. And near the beginning of a thorough rebuild on the south side, it shows that they are now all the way on the other side of that rebuild, one that ultimately failed, and a new one is underway. For the Angels, this trade signifies that we mean that everything we mean, and we mean everything. It's about right now. So we can divorce the news of the deal, and Halo should be hanging on to Ohtani for the rest of the season, and you can't do that and then stand pat. And GM Perry Menacion wasted no time springing into action. He landed 2 veteran righties, headlined by Giolito, who has a 3.79 ERA so far this year, who has been a Cy Young contender when at his best, and Lopez has never quite fulfilled his potential in any of the roles the White Sox put him in. He occasionally reached triple digits along with his fastball and could vacillate widely from dominant to lousy from game to game or even within a game. That makes him both a wild card for the Angels and a classic change of scenery candidate. Don't sleep on what he can do. He has a 4.29 ERA over 42 innings, and it might mean to this deal. So they ended up giving the White Sox a B+, and Quero, only 20, was Kylie McDaniel's top 40 overall prospect on the midseason top 50, and his top-rated Angels prospect. He's usually described as a bat-first stop with a long way to go on defense. And if the project does not plan out, his lack of speed will probably confine him to first base. The last thing the White Sox need is another top prospect slated for first base, but we won't know. His superficial numbers at the plate are down this season after his move up to the Double-A level, and don't get too worked up. Last year, he rated to a 312 batting average for the low A. This season, he's at a 246 average for Double-A Rocket City. The lack of power is surprising, as Rocket City isn't a bad homer environment. But the Southern League overall slashes at 241, and Cuero is 3.7 years younger than the average player, according to BaseballReference.com. That on-base ability is special, so it's all about developing his skills. Bush is a hulking lefty with a heavy four-seamer that sits in a 93 to 96 mile-per-hour range and began spring training with a chance to position himself for a big league debut for the Angels at some point in 2023. But his early season was wiped out by non-arm injuries, first an oblique and then groin. He didn't get started in Double-A until the third week of June, so while his season-level numbers aren't great with a 7.2 ERA and a .866 OPS allowed, a little better than that in just his Double-A outings. He's really just getting going, and his performance has been trending up. He will help the White Sox's rotation sooner. So this is a way for the White Sox to offload, and they are 41-62. It's a disappointing time for their fans because this is not the way the rebuild once built upon prospects Giolito and Lopez were supposed to turn out. Alright, the next trade is going to be the Brewers trade for first baseman Carlos Santana, with the Pirates did infielder Joni Severino. And they ended up giving the Brewers a C+. So the Brewers are in first place, other than Craig Counsell being the reincarnation of Houdini. This is a bad offensive team. Adames has a 206 average, has been hitting third of late. As recently as a week ago, Jesse Winker in his 199 average with one home run was hitting cleanup. Milwaukee's first basemen are 29th in the majors in OPS, and DHs are also 29th. And now Winker is on the injured list anyway, so he will be an upgrade. He may be the new cleanup hitter, even though he's basically been league average for the Pirates, hitting .235 with 12 home runs and a 98 OPS plus. They ended up giving the Pirates a B+ grade. Well, this was a kind in the picture all along when the Pirates signed him, and now they have collapsed to a 6-15 record in June, and you can bet Rich Hill, another veteran, will be next. The Pirates get a complete flyer in Severino, an 18-year-old shortstop who has been cracked 4 home runs in 12 games in the Arizona Complex League. He signed for $1.23 million in January, and MLB.com ranked him the 21st best prospect in his signing class. He has a little bit more potential than the typical prospect included in a trade, and there is a chance we may never hear about him again, but his steal was a good roll of the dice for Pittsburgh. And next up, we do have the Marlins and Mets. The Marlins ended up trading away David Robertson for second baseman Marco Vargas and Ronald Hernandez. They ended up getting the Marlins a B+ on this, and they also graded the Mets at B+. Well, what non-contending teams do, they trade their impending free agents for whatever future value they can get. It's not what they wanted when the season began, and it's not what they pursue. What they pursue when he encouraged a $350 million-ish payroll. This was his trade being reported. The Mets were finishing off a spirited comeback win at home after a long weather delay, and it didn't change the reality in which the Mets own a roughly 1 in 20 chance of getting into the playoffs. The approach, as signaled by this deal, is to offload, and it really shouldn't be any other way. The Marlins will be taking on the remainder of Robertson's aspiring $10 million one-year deal, and this will save the Mets a little cash, but it will also be adding to their prospect queue. In Vargas and Hernandez, the Mets landed 2 hitting prospects who together who are younger than Robertson. Both have been playing for the Marlins rookie complex club, where they were the most productive hitters on the roster, and both owned huge on-base percentages. For what that's worth, Vargas is the higher rated of the two, carrying a 35+ FV in a preseason rank. Alright, next trade of this deadline, we got a low deal, and I'm not going to go over that one. But this next one is a little bit bigger one. The Dodgers ended up trading away trading for Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly for Trace Thompson, Nick Nastrini, and Jordan Leisure. They ended up giving the Dodgers a C+, and it appears the Dodgers should have done better in adding pitching depth, considering Lynn has a 6.47 ERA and leads the majors in home runs allowed, while Kelly has a 4.97 ERA. Buried beneath those bloated ERAs, it is the idea that both pitchers have strikeout stuff the Dodgers believe they can work with. Lynn has averaged 10.8 strikeouts per 9, and Kelly has 41 strikeouts in 29 innings. Lynn has had huge problems in the first inning with a 10.29 ERA, allowed basically in the first inning. Every batter against him has had been Shohei Ohtani. Yet the Dodgers and Rays both wanted Lynn. In the first inning, problems are something the Dodgers can fix with sequencing or another adjustment. And Lynn doesn't have to be a great speed upgrade in the rotation, just moderately useful. Emmett Sheehan threw six no-hit innings in his first MLB debut, but has had a 8.49 ERA in his first 5 starts since. Michael Grove is currently starting and has a 6.19 ERA. And then they also got Kiki Hernandez and Ahmad Rosario so far this season. They ended up grading the White Sox a B as well. Mm-hmm. Next up, they ended up... This was a huge trade when it happened, and it was the Rangers trading for right-handed pitcher and starting pitcher Matt Scherzer, a former Mizzou Tiger. He has been bouncing around from team to team in the past couple of years. He played long-term for the Nationals, won the World Series in 2019, and then was traded to the Dodgers in the 2021 season. And then, after the 2021 season, he ended up signing with the Mets prior to last year, and he ended up getting traded mid-season, a season and a half later. I mean, this is not a start the Mets wanted when they ended up trying to get. But anyway, they ended up getting one of the top prospects in MLB right now, and Luis Angel Acuna, who is also Ronald Acuna Jr.'s brother. So this is going to be a trade for the Rangers. They did a really good infielder, and the Rangers get a star pitcher and what they wanted, and they've been trading for all these starting pitchers recently, and I will get to another one who they traded for recently as well. Moving on, we do get the Blue Jays, who the Blue Jays and Cardinals trade here. The Blue Jays ended up trading for right-handed pitcher Jordan Hicks, while the Cardinals trade for right-handed pitcher Sam Raboris and right-handed pitcher Adam Kloffenstein. The Blue Jays grade is a B+. With Jordan Romano landing on the IL, the Blue Jays streak quickly to require the best power reliever available. Hicks is still one of the hardest throwers in the game, with a fastball that has averaged 100.6 miles per hour, finishing second only behind Johan Duran. And he is still trying to find some consistency. Maybe he has found that over the past 2+ months, since early May, he has a 1.88 ERA over 26 appearances with a much improved 37-10 strikeout walk ratio across 28 2/3 innings. With Romano sidelined, he may even get a crack at closing, and he has done that for the Cardinals since mid-June and has recorded 8 saves in 9 opportunities. I wouldn't read too much into that success rate. Only 2 of those opportunities were 1-run leads, and he blew one of them. Toronto's other option is probably Trevor Richards, who has 81 strikeouts in 53 1/3 innings, but the Jays like him as somebody who can get more than 3 outs. Plus, he has allowed 9 home runs. And they ended up grading the Cardinals a B-. The Cardinals are no doubt frustrated that Hicks has really reached his potential in St. Louis, with Tommy John surgery wiping out much of 2019 through 2021, but he heads into free agency. They were able to cash in on his well-timed breakout, and they get 2 starting pitching prospects in Double-A for a rental reliever. Roberts, a 21-year-old native of the Netherlands, has a 4.06 ERA for New Hampshire. In 18 starts, he was the number 10 Blue Jays prospect heading into the season with a 45 future value grade. Kloffenstein, a 22-year-old right reliever, right-hander, has slightly outperformed Roberts at Double-A with a 3.24 ERA and 105 strikeouts in 89 innings. A really good rebound season after struggling in 2022 and falling off the prospect radar. And the next trade was another Cardinals trade. They ended up trading with the Rangers, and they traded away left-handed pitcher Jordan Montgomery and right-handed pitcher Chris Stratton, who they got in the Pirates trade last year. The Cardinals did in return left-handed pitcher John King, right-handed pitcher Takoa Roby, and infielder Thomas Sadis. The Rangers ended up getting an A- on this trade. As mentioned in our look at the Matt Scherzer trade, the Rangers' rotation has been good in the aggregate this season, and with one notable exception of Nathan Eovaldi, who has been put on the IL. Montgomery pitched somewhat better for the Cardinals than he did for the Yankees, and it would have been a defensible move for the Cardinals to be aggressive in extending him before it came to this. Instead, the Rangers are landing him at a time where he's at his career peak. He's actually having a better season than Scherzer, is motivated to produce in high-stakes games. And then they ended up giving the Cardinals a C on this one, as the actual aspect of this trade kind of works. You have two non-elite pending free agent pitchers. Their 2 months of remaining production would be a lot more valuable to a contending team than one that began Sunday looking up at the Pirates in the standings. Depending on how you see Roby and Sadis, you can look to see how the math could work in future value estimations. You are really not that excited about St. Louis's return. Call it in a matter of opportunity. In this trade environment, with so many teams hunting for pitchers and so many teams in relative contention, I would have expected a better and differently structured package that offered more upside potential, even if that meant dipping into the rookie complex leagues for a very young wild card type or two. Alright, so you need a middle-of-the-road prospects, and the Cardinals produced plenty of them. But King, he is a 28-year-old lefty reliever about to hit arbitration eligibility, and he doesn't miss bats and throws a heavy sinker at 93 to 94 miles per hour that produces a lot of ground balls, about 50%. For a lack of a better team, he's kind of a ham and egger. The Cardinals have added to the organizational depth, but could have done more. And moving on to our next trade, we get the Braves trading for infielder Nicky Lopez for left-handed pitcher Taylor Hearn. The Braves end up getting a B, and the Royals got a D. Moving on to the next trade, we do have the Angels and the Rockies. The Angels ended up trading away first baseman C.J. Cron and outfielder Randall Grichuk. Well, they get them for Mason Albright and Jake Madden. The Angels ended up getting a B+ for this trade, and the Rockies did a C, as Randall Grichuk was started up with the Angels organization, and now finally gets to make his MLB, his Angel big league debut. Moving on to our next trade, we got a Guardians trade with the Rays. The Rays ended up getting Aaron Zaval from the Guardians, while they traded away one of their best prospects in Kyle Manzardo. The Rays ended up getting A-. The A's did not perform the magic that they tend to work on required players. This deal is a bonanza for a team with a real shot at a World Series crown, and the Rays' injury-battered rotation, which lost Drew Rasmussen and Jeffrey Springs for the year and was missing Shane McClanahan for a couple of weeks. This is coming off of a prolonged rough stretch. Now they can roll out a rotation of McClanahan, Tyler Glasnow, Zach Eflin, and Aaron Zaval down the stretch, along with standout rookie Taj Bradley, whose innings and or fatigue level may have to be managed. On the year, the Rays ranked second in the majors with a 3.75 ERA, but that figure since June 10th has been 5.05, which ranks 25th during that span. Well, Zaval has a 2.34 ERA on the season and a 1.45 mark over 6 starts in July. That's before the Rays get their hands on him. The Guardians get a C- in this trade, as their turnover in the Guardians' rotation has been starting. But there's what you can do when their scouting and development prospects yield such a steady supply of productive young arms. When last season began, the starting group consisted of Shane Bieber, Cal Quantrill, Zach Plesac, and Tristan McKenzie. now on the way to bolster the Rays' stretchered run. Cleveland could arguably afford to make a move like this despite the 2+ controllable seasons the arbitration-eligible Savall has remaining because the Guardians have gotten good work from so many rookie starting pitchers. Peyton Battenfield on the shelf and Hunter Gaddis is back trying to figure things out in AAA, so the Guardians will lean heavily on Gavin Williams, Logan T. Allen, and Rookie of the Year candidate Tanner Bibby down the stretch. And yeah, this is a pretty good trade, honestly, I think, for the Guardians, as they get a really good infielder as well. Moving on to our next big trade, we do have the Diamondbacks and the Mariners. The Diamondbacks ended up trading for right-handed pitcher Paul Sewald, while the Mariners did infielder Josh Rojas, Dominic Canzone, and Ryan Bliss. The Diamondbacks did a B on this deal, while the Mariners did a C in my books. Moving on, we have another trade. The Brewers ended up trading with the Mets. The Mets continue to ship off players. They traded away Mark Canha. They just got right before a couple years ago. The Brewers ended up getting Mark Canha, while the Mets get Justin Jarvis, right-handed pitcher, from the Brewers. So the Brewers ended up getting a B- as Canha is a minor upgrade for the Brewers' low-octane offense, which is more or less similar to the dynamic capture by their acquisition of Carlos Santana. You might want to read that as a statement about the Brewers' pre-deadline offense, but the fact of the matter is that the bats just don't seem to be available at this deadline, and if the marginal upgrades are what the Brewers can get, then they need them. Despite the Brewers are adding at the deadline because they are in a net-to-net three-way tussle with the Reds and the Cubs for the top spot in the NL Central, and they've done that with some of the best run prevention in the majors. For a club like this, a little additional offense can go a long way, especially when Canha has been introduced in a way that doesn't mess with Milwaukee's elite defense. Canha figures to mostly DH for the Brewers, while possibly logging some for time at first base and possibly in the outfield against the occasional lefty in place of lefty swinging rookie Sal Frelick. The Mets did a C+. Canha was solid, but unspectacular for the Mets, which is why they should have expected. In 2022, he was a key component for the Mets' run to the postseason, but he was likely going to be bought out after the season, so with the Mets out of the chase, getting something for him now makes sense. Moving on to the next big trade, we have the Cubs starting to buy. The Cubs get third baseman Jeimer Candelario as they trade away infielder Kevin Made and left-handed pitcher DJ Hertz. The Cubs ended up getting a B+, as Candelario might have been the most in-demand player of this trade deadline, considering Nationals general manager Mike Rizzo said on Sunday that he was discussing a trade with 8 teams. He returns to his original organization where he played 16 games before he was traded to the Tigers back in 2017. For the Cubs, it's a late twist to their season. 2 weeks ago, they looked like they would be trading away players, but the recent 8-game winning streak turned their fortunes around. The switch-hitting Candelario has smashed a solid .258 with 48 extra base hits, so he could slot in the middle of the order, given the Cubs are 9th in the National League in home runs and 13th in doubles. Candelario should give them a little more action. The Nationals did a C+. Made is the bigger name here, despite being one of the Cubs' top international signings in 2019. After receiving a $1.5 million signing bonus, he just hasn't hit much in the minors. He has a .241 batting average this year while repeating high A. He makes enough contact but doesn't drive the ball, although scouts believe he can turn into a 15-homer guy. He's still very young for this league, 20 years old, so don't write off him just yet. He has the glove and arm strength to stay at shortstop, though it's hard to see him being anything beyond a utility player. Hertz is a lefty with a crossfire delivery, a good changeup, and a good strikeout rate. He has a 3.97 ERA in Double-A, however, with command issues, 37 watts in 59 innings, probably mean he's headed to the bullpen. And yeah, that's pretty much all the trades so far that has happened this season. Moving on to who we think will be contenders and who could be traded at this deadline. Alrighty, so the players that will most likely be dealt at this deadline, according to David Schoenfield, ESPN senior writer, We have Justin Verlander as the top bet. The Mets did pretty well to get a highly rated prospect from the Rangers for Max Scherzer, and Verlander has the same $43.3 million salary this season, and Nets, and like Scherzer has a no trade provision, so he would have to agree to any trade. They'll no doubt have to deploy a similar strategy and include some cash in the deal. Verlander has been pitching better than Scherzer with a 3.15 ERA, including a 1.69 mark over his past 6 starts, in which he has held batters to a .167 average and just 1 home run and 37 in a third innings. Don't mistake this version of Verlander as a peak Verlander, however, or even the Cy Young winner of last year. Even over this stretch, his strikeout to walk ratio is a mediocre 32-16 in his swinging strike rate, which ranked in the 90th percentile in 2019 pre-Tommy John surgery, is down to the 37th percentile. His hard hit rate is also dropped as well. His odds of trade is 30%. The next up, we have just the Cardinals in general. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Dylan Carlson, Paul DeJong, and Tyler O'Neill. The Cardinals are juggling a lot of balls and have already traded Jordan Montgomery in hits, and they're probably not stopping. The Cardinals have intended to complete next season. John Mozeliak has indicated the Cardinals intend to compete next year, so this isn't going to be a full-scale rebuild, which makes any Arenado or Goldschmidt trade unlikely. On Saturday, Mozeliak said in regard to Arenado, "We are not trading him, have not asked him to waive his no-trade clause, so at this time we are working on building our future success." On the other hand, they do need to rebuild the rotation, and they do need to have replacements available in Jordan Walker, a third baseman whom the Cardinals have shoved in the right field with disastrous results, and Nolan Gorman, who could slide over from second to first to replace Goldschmidt. Still, Carlson and DeJong are the position players most likely to go, as Carlson is part of the crowded outfield pitcher, and if Arenado is kept, that means Walker is out there for next year. Along with Lars Nootbaar, Alex Burleson, and Tommy Edman and O'Neill, Carlson's bat has never taken off and has regressed since 2021. He's still just 24, but he looks more like a fourth outfielder now than a future star. DeJong has bounced back to the plate after hitting 182 the past 2 years and is still a solid defender, and there is an obvious fit for him on any contenders, maybe the Red Sox, if they decide to keep Story at second when he returns. O'Neill, meanwhile, is a change of scenery candidate, but he has really produced only in his bid season in 2021. Odds for trades would be 1% for Arenado and Goldschmidt never, so 50% for the others. And next up, we have the Padres and Snell and Hader both. So Snell and Hader are both free agents, and given the Padres' place in the standings, they probably should be traded. But the Padres no doubt still believe they're just one good stretch from being the super team many thought they were back in March. Whether they're delusional about their playoff chances or not, they have so much invested in this year that they have almost hoped that they 20-5 stretch is yet to come, but even that kind of stretch wouldn't guarantee them a playoff spot. In the end, maybe the offers will be too good to ignore, as he now leads the majors with his 2.5 ERA, including just 5 earned runs allowed over his past 11 starts. At the trade deadline, recent performance carries a lot of weight, and this would make Snell perhaps the top starter available. Hader is a clear difference maker as that power lefty out of the bullpen and has made initial struggles when he first got to San Diego last year, but he fixed those issues by the end of the season and has been as dominant as ever with a .9 ERA, 61 strikeouts, and 1 home run in 39 innings. My odds of trades would be 25%. Next up, we have Marcus Stroman of the Cubs. 2 weeks ago, it looked like a sure thing that Stroman and Bellinger would be traded, as the Cubs were 43-50 and 8.5 games out of first place. Then the Cubs climbed over 500 after an 8-game winning streak and now sit just 4 games out of first place. And on Sunday, the Cubs informed teams that Bellinger wouldn't be traded. What about Stroman? He has an opt-out clause that lets you search into exercise and looks like the top pitcher on the market when he had a 2.28 ERA. But since his BABIP regressed, and he has an 8 ERA over his past 6 starts. Even if the Cubs are still listening to offers, this recent stretch has hurt his value. Odds of trades are 20%. Next up, we have Jack Flaherty. from the Cardinals. Like his teammate Montgomery, Flaherty's heading into free agency and drawing a lot of interest. Montgomery's numbers on the season are better overall, and Flaherty's a guy I would love to roll the dice on. He has topped 100 innings for the first time since 2019, when he had that incredible second half and finished 4th in the Cy Young voting. He has sapped some speed from his fastball, which has averaged 92.9 miles per hour, but his curveball remains a nice swing and miss offering. Here's what's intriguing. The Cardinals have been a bad defensive team, and Flaherty has been the unluckiest of the St. Louis starters. But when he's on, he's tough. Since May 15th, he has 4 scoreless outings out of 12 starts. We'd love to see him with a better defense behind him. Odds of trades, 85%. Next up, we have Eduardo Rodriguez and Michael Lorenzen of the Detroit Tigers. Rodriguez has a 3-year deal left after the season on his original 5-year deal with Detroit, but he also has an opt-out clause that he's likely to use because of his performance this year, with a 2.95 ERA, will earn him a nice contract. Given that probability, it makes sense for the Tigers to trade him, and with all the teams that need rotation help, the Tigers should be able to get an intriguing prospect in return. Lorenzen is also a free agent and recently spun off 3 consecutive scoreless starts, although they come against the offensively challenged Athletics, Mariners, and Royals. Rodriguez has a long track record that suggests he's not really this good, although he does have a career low walk rate. He has an incredible sit-start stretch in April and early May when he allowed 2 runs in 41 2/3 innings, but he has a 4.91 ERA since then. The Tigers aren't exactly eliminated from the American League Central race, but the odds are slim that they can catch the Twins or the Guardians. So expect both pitchers to be traded. Odds of trades, 80%. Next up, we have Tommy Pham, New York Mets. He has been traded a lot recently. He started out with the Padres a couple years ago, and then he signed with the Reds, traded to the Red Sox, and now on the Mets. The David Robertson trade indicated that Pham and Canha are Nets, as neither are in the Mets' plans for 2024, as Pham is a free agent and Canha has a $2 million buyout. The Mets sent Canha to Milwaukee, so Pham could be the Nets' name to go. He has a nice season in a part-time role and projects as a platoon bat for a contender, either as a left fielder or DH, and has slugged over 500 against left-handers. Odds of trades, 99%. Next up, we have Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu of the Mariners. Everyone keeps trying to trade one of the Mariners' young starters, and a baseball ops president, Jerry DiPoto, hasn't exactly been shy about the team needing to upgrade. Thus, the rumors of trading a starting pitcher for some similarly uncontrollable left young position players. Kirby is unlikely to go, and Miller and Wu are unproven rookies. That leaves Gilbert, who has 4 seasons left of team control, as the proven top of the rotation pitcher that a contending team, say the Orioles, who have hitting prospects to spare, might desire. The only trouble with that theory is trading a starter just opens up a hole in the Mariners' rotation, as Robbie Ray is out for the season, and there is no timetable for if and when Marco Gonzalez will return. They could promote Emerson Hancock from Double-A, and they've done this season with Miller and Wu, but that means trying to scratch out a playoff spot with three rookies in the rotation. DiPoto could play both sides, trading a starter for some young hitters and then add a veteran like Rich Hill to fill the gap for the remainder of the year. Odds of trades, 25%. Rich Hill of the Pittsburgh Pirates. Speaking of Hill, who has a curveball, will travel. The 43-year-old lefty is a serviceable back-end starter who has a 4.82 ERA for the Pirates and will most likely be joining his 7th team since 2019. That could be returned to the Red Sox, his team in 2022, or the Rays, where he pitched in 2021, as both teams are looking to add a starter for their injury-riddled rotations. A more intriguing name on the Reds of the Pirates would be all-star closer David Bednar, who has a 1.27 ERA and is 20 for 21 in save opportunities. But he still has 3 years of team control remaining, so he'll cost more than teams are generally willing to give up for a reliever. Odds of trades, 99%. The leftover Chicago White Sox, Tim Anderson, Yasmani Grandal, or Eloy Jimenez. Giolito, Lynn, Lopez, and Graveman have already been traded, and the White Sox might continue to clean house. In Anderson's cause, it might be hard to believe anyone even wants him, as he's been one of the worst regulars in the majors. He's hitting .245 with no home runs and a bad defensive metrics. Given that he hit .300 the previous 4 years, it's hard to know what has happened, but he has been so bad. The White Sox are likely to exercise their $1 million buyout rather than pay him $14 million next year. Grandal is a free agent and has been better, .251 average, but he's owed about $6 million in the final 2 months. Maybe the White Sox eat some money to get a decent prospect in return, while teams are reluctant to bring in a new catcher this year late in the season. Grandal has been a veteran, and a team like the Marlins, who have a .561 OPS from their bat stops, could use an upgrade. And don't rule out Jimenez, although earlier reports out of Chicago had him one of the 4 untouchable veterans alongside Cease, Robert Jr., and Andrew Vaughn. He signed through 2024 with club options for 2025, and he also is injury-prone and a lot less valuable as his salary starts to increase. He has never had a 2.0 WAR season, in part because of injuries, plus his best season came in 2020, so I think it made sense to trade him if the White Sox are entering a rebuilding period. Odds of trades: 70% for Grandal, 10% for Anderson and Jimenez. So, yeah, that is basically all of the trade targets, I would say, for this season, according to David Schoenfield, ESPN's senior writer. Thanks for watching the podcast today. Peace.